Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on our second week of our live broadcast of our panel. We're going to give people a few minutes to come in and join us so we can have a collective community conversation. So hang tight, grab your drinks, whatever that may be, tea, coffee, or whatever, and grab your comments so that way you can leave it in the Dropbox. Hopefully we fixed that error from last week. So we'll give y'all a few minutes.
Come on in, peeps.
Mm-hmm.
Let me text my dad. Dad, hurry.
Awesome. Welcome. I see people coming in. I just said that we're just going to give folks a few more minutes to get comfortable, get in, so that way we can have this collective community conversation, and we'll get started in about 2 minutes.
Do you want to have someone comment just to see?
Oh yeah, and if you are, I see a few people on the line. So if you can just add a public comment down below so we can see if it pops up. We're doing a little test run just to see if we get that.
Yay! Thanks, Mom.
Oh,
so at least we know that the comments are working.
I see it now. I had to click like comment.
Awesome. I'm just gonna try something else. Boom. Do you see it?
Yes.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Okay, wonderful. So we're going to go ahead and get started. As everyone starts to come in, I will periodically check the comments every few minutes. And then I believe Dr. Rose and Dr. Q, you all have access to the comments too as well?
We do.
Wonderful. So if I miss something, please do bring it to surface. But we'll go ahead and get started so that way we can respect people's time. So again, thank you for joining us. This is our second live broadcast of our panel. We're so excited to be here to really share this community with folks so we can just build some collective power. If you remember last Thursday, so today we're doing it on Wednesday, but last Thursday at 7, we really discussed the implications of COVID-19 in Black and Brown communities. We broke down health disparities and what does that term truly mean when we're speaking about us, be it about our weathering, comorbidities, our housing, our options for access to healthcare, et cetera. The list goes on. So we spoke about that as well as structural racism, inequality, accessibility, et cetera. So that was a very strong conversation. We thank you for your comments and your input. And then now, as I said last week, we are filming here in Georgia. When I say filming here, of course, we're together apart, but all three of us, the panelists, we live in Georgia. And there's been some very interesting things that are set to happen this Friday. And the reason why we're gathering here is because, as you may have heard, the governor of Georgia, Kemp, has decided to reopen the state of Georgia, this Friday. So we thought it was really important to get online as soon as possible, which is why we didn't join you on Thursday. We wanted to make sure we were able to galvanize our community as soon as possible so we can have some open dialogue about this and what this means when you're trying to make a decision as to if it is safe to re-enter the economy, so to speak, or the community. So we wanted to gather here and have this conversation. Please put your comments below because, again, we encourage you to get involved in this conversation, to center your voice too as well. And we'll begin. I am Dr. Krista Redmond. I'm one of the hosts of our panel, and I'll let our two other co-hosts introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. India Rose.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kiana Llewellyn. Welcome.
Welcome. Wonderful. So as I said before in that very brief welcome to you all, the reason why we're here is because we got word, most of you have probably got word, that the governor of Georgia, Kemp, has decided to reopen the state. So the big question is, what does that mean for us as a community? As a piggyback from our last conversation last week, we discussed that we are most at risk. If you think about the cases of COVID-19, we have about almost 18,000 cases, or almost 19,000 cases in Georgia as calculated yesterday, and close to 733 deaths. in Georgia alone. And this is updated as 24 hours ago, right, from the Georgia Department of Public Health. Now, half of those cases and deaths are of Black people in Georgia. So what does that truly mean for us when all of a sudden we're getting this message that it's now okay, not safe, but okay to re-enter and re-engage in society? So, those are some of the things that we need to center and also discuss as we begin to try to digest and think about making the decision on if it is safe for us, our families, our loved ones to re-engage back into society, go back to work, etc.
Absolutely. I guess I will start off by speaking of some of the establishments and businesses that he is deciding to open on Friday. We have barbershops, hair salons. I also heard of hair schools, tattoo parlors, massage parlors, and private social clubs. I'm not sure what that is, but we brainstormed that it might be maybe country clubs of some sort, because he did specify it is not nightclubs and it is not lounges. So I don't know what private clubs are. Do you guys know what private clubs are? Me either.
I would assume that it's a social club of sorts, some sort of like country club or golf club that's exclusive, that has some sort of membership tied to it.
Right, membership, some certain area, or certain socioeconomic status, or like you said, membership. So with all of those establishments being open, it is still exposing, a great deal of the brown and Black community, because a lot of us are hairstylists, barbers. A lot of us have jobs still that we have to go to, depending on what we talked about last week. The warehouses have to take public transportation. So we have to go on the public transportation route more likely than another race, because that is just how it is. So we're more exposed to that. So I'm very, very curious to see how people are going to screen, how people are really going to adhere to the social distancing, how people are going to stay sanitized, how they are going to have access to those hand sanitizers, to the Lysols, to the bleach, to the different things. Are you going to check the temperature to each person coming in? A lot of people are asymptomatic, and we could talk about what our governor said about big asymptomatic people a couple of weeks ago, but it's just a great concern of mine being in the healthcare field. I am still seeing patients on an emergency basis because some people are still having knee surgeries and back surgeries, and I'm screening those type people, and I am still holding off on about 80% of my caseload, and I'm in direct access healthcare. So I'm very concerned about my community who don't have, the background that I have, and I'm still not seeing 80% of my caseload. And so many of them are so eager to return to work, which I understand there's decisions to be made. And it's so sad to me that we have to decide on our life versus making an income for our families.
That's right.
Absolutely, Dr. Flewellen, you really touched on some great points. So as we know, the Georgia Department of Public Health releases data at 7 p.m. So the most recent count is now 20,166 cases in Georgia and 818 deaths. So the number is increasing. And I think one thing that is truly problematic is that Governor Kemp was supposed to follow the federal guidelines that were outlined by the coronavirus task force that Trump put together. And one of the guidelines is that our cases have to decrease for a 2-week time span before we can open up our economy again. And so we are still seeing increases in cases. We're still seeing increases in death. So that data alone should not, for me personally, that should be a wake-up call, like, hey, we're not ready. But for some odd reason, Kemp thinks that we are. And, everyone is hurting right now. Like, it's very difficult for people to sustain their lives, sustain their livelihood without having some sort of income coming in. And I know that millions of Americans will receive a stimulus check to help offset the cost of this hardship. but I think that it is politically negligent and politically irresponsible for Kim to open up our economy without thinking about the implications that it has for the most vulnerable. Before it was elderly people, before it was individuals that had, respiratory situations, asthma. But now we know that at risk is really African American, it's Black and brown communities. And so, we frequent the places that you're opening. We frequent hair salons, nail salons. If y'all could see my nails, I'm gonna stay back here. Everyone is in need of a fill-in of some sort. Everyone wants to get back to regular life, but I think that he really jumped the gun and he's opening up our state way too soon. And the fact that he did not consult the mayor of Atlanta and the mayor of Augusta, those are the two largest cities in the state of Georgia and the most populated cities in the state of Georgia. And he did not consult those leaders. And so I think it's just really, really important for people to do what's best for you, and that is staying home and continuing to practice social distancing.
Absolutely. And one thing this shows is how prevalent white supremacy, privilege, and capitalism is in this situation. We know the identity, the racial identity of Kemp. Kemp is a white male American, what have you. So then let's look at some history. Let's look at the track record, because if he is not going on public health data, then we have no choice than to go off of action. So what Kemp has shown us is, one, during his gubernatorial race, his race for governor here against Stacey Abrams, there was a significant voter suppression issue. That this was the first time ever in the South. Obviously, there's a history of voter suppression and other ways of oppression and how it shows up in our systems, political systems. So one, Kemp ran campaigns showing how visibly racist he was, like literally saying with a firearm, this is how he wards off people who are indigenous and immigrant in our country. So we see these images of Kemp and the platform, the political platform rather, that he has stood on. This is the same person in this position of power who has denied consistently comprehensive health care. So you remember House Bill 481, that was from last legislative session, regarding the 6-week ban around abortion and someone's ability to make a decision about their body. He stood firmly on it, saying no, right? So he is in the business of making decisions for people without consulting the constituents and also without recognizing who are the constituents. So with that said, it's not a surprise that that Georgia and its neighboring states have been competing to open up. It's like, it's like a fun game or something, right? Georgia wanted to rush to reopen, South Carolina wanted to rush to reopen, Tennessee wanted to rush and reopen or what have you. And these governors look very identical, I will say that. So it's almost a race, a competition, a political race just to see who can get it first, right? And in these southern states, who do you think makes up the demographic of these states, right? Georgia, but specifically Atlanta, Metro Atlanta, the mega city, is predominantly Black. So do this trial test run, let's just open it up and see what happens, doesn't work for us, because you're literally pivoting our lives. You are gambling with the lives of Black and brown people. And it truly shows us, as we discussed last week, how much our lives are not valued.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It looks like we have a couple of questions in the queue. So one is, what do you think about the governor opening the state for social activity? So one of the locations that the governor is choosing to open is bowling alleys. And I would think that he's doing this for the young people. They're now coined the quarantines. So the teens do need some sort of social interaction, some sort of social activity. I think what they need to do, the parents specifically, is do what's best for their children. If you want to go bowling, the whole family needs to have on a mask, an N95 mask, some sort of protective mask. But I just think, let's give it another 2 weeks and see what happens. Let's see if the cases can decline. And the bowling alley will always be there. If you test positive for coronavirus and you have a compromised system already, you may not be here in 2 weeks. So I would say, just be patient. I feel like we've been patient so far. We're going on almost 5 weeks of practicing social distancing here in Georgia. So I would say, it's not the best idea, but I know folks are yearning for some sort of social activity. And then the next question is, how do you feel about Trump saying today that it's too soon to open Georgia back up, considering he planted this seed?
I didn't even know he said that today.
Let me
I'm not surprised because he goes back and forth.
Yes.
But no words.
What is he going to say tomorrow? That's my immediate thought. He is also the one who said it's understandable that people are ready to get out. They want to get their lives back, right? So my response to this is what he said a few days ago, after he made the comment that is up to our governors, right? My response to that is, what about the people that lost their lives? They're not available to comment, right? Because they're not here anymore. So people are eager to get our lives back. But as we said last week in our panel, that our new normal will shift, right? This COVID-19 and the way in which the U.S. responded to it has severe implications. And because of that, our normal will shift. So this rush to get back to a sense of normalcy and just our common reality is a rush that will lead us into danger and be significantly at risk. Now, this person is saying, the 45th person in the White House is saying that, basically it may not be a good idea to reopen again. I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. I don't know what to say about that person. It's just not worth following the trend of whatever he's saying on any given day.
Yeah, and it's because we know that it changes often. In one of his recent press meetings that he had, he said, one of the reporters asked, what metrics or data are you using to determine when to reopen the country? And he pointed here, and, implying he's using his own knowledge, common sense. And we know that he lacks that. So, it's really, really unfortunate that now we have governors that are following that same suit and not using data. We are in public health for a reason. Numbers don't lie. Our numbers in Georgia are not decreasing, and the deaths are not decreasing. And this is the trend across the country. We have not seen a decline yet. And I think that, governors just need to really, really be patient in this situation and make sure that they are following these federal guidelines that were set out. Until you see a decline for 2 weeks straight, it is not time to open up an economy, regardless of the struggles that folks are going through. I know that some of these industries reached out to the governor and said that they are suffering, and I understand that. But would you rather suffer now or be dead? I mean, this is a life and death situation at this point, especially for Black and Brown communities.
Okay, you want me to ask another question, Chris?
Well, actually, I was going to piggyback on what Dr. Rose said. But yes, you said something very important. The conversation has been centered around money, the economy, et cetera, et cetera. And we do need finances to sustain, to be able to eat, to live, et cetera. But if we have no life, if we're able to live, if we re-engage into society prematurely without having checks and balances in place, such as public health data information, without taking the necessary precautions and following guidelines, then we are setting ourselves up for failure. And when I say failure, for illness, sickness, that can lead up to death. Okay. We're talking about something that's not just, hey, I can just, get COVID-19 and go away or what have you. Right. Literally Russian roulette that we are playing here with our lives. And the person holding that gun is our government. Okay. Like, let's be very clear of who is making the decisions here around our lives. So our response is, we as a collective community need to take the power back into our hands and make informed decisions. In our conversation before we got live, Dr. Rose said something very powerful around, I won't take your slogan, you could say, around knowledge, and who holds that knowledge and how they use that knowledge, or et cetera. And the fact that our local administration is making a decision that is not based on medical and public health information, and rather just the pattern of the economy is very dangerous, extremely dangerous. And it almost makes me, not almost, it absolutely does. As a person that centers their work in Black liberation and in public health and reproductive justice, I'm just going to say population control and eugenics all day long.
Absolutely.
We know history with forced sterilization, with the Tuskegee experimentation, and numerous experimentation that has been done on the backs of Black and Brown people. And now here's another experiment. Let's reopen and see what happens. And if a few have to die, Black and brown people, then that's the cost we are willing to pay for our economy to be back up and running. So that's how serious this decision is right now.
And that's actually what President Trump said. He said some people will die. So to say some people will, to acknowledge that some people will die when governors make the decision to open up their economies, to me, one life lost is too many. But clearly to our government at the federal and state level, you know, like you said, we are definitely playing Russian roulette with our lives. And just to put it out there so folks can write it down, the quote that Dr. Redmond was referring to, I always say that knowledge isn't power, it's what you do with it that's powerful. So write it down on a Post-it, put it on your refrigerator. We have a couple of questions in the queue if you want to read them, Dr. Fluellen.
Yes. What do you think the majority opinion is of the communities surrounding the newly opened businesses?
That's a great question. I know I have a close friend. Her name's Andrea Gall. She's a hairstylist in Hateville, Georgia, the Beverly Salon. And she's making the decision to open, but she is not opening right away. And she will be taking a temperature. She's putting a buzzer on her door so that it's one client to one stylist. And she's also making everyone wear a mask. So she is taking the necessary precautions. But I think, you know, she's going above and beyond. The average person probably will not. And it's impossible to practice social distancing in some of these situations. When you're getting your nails done, when you're getting your, you know, your pedicure, when you're getting a massage, it is impossible to practice social distancing. And so I think the communities that are opening up this Friday, from a financial and economic standpoint, I'm sure that they are ready to get back to business. But I also know that most of them are aware that it will not be business as usual. And a lot of them are putting in certain precautions to make sure that not only themselves, but their patrons and their clients are healthy as well. Because we don't want to see the number increase. And, you know, just being a realist like I am, we're going to see the number of cases increase as a result of this, for sure.
Yes, and I would like to piggyback because I'm a hands-on clinician. I'm a physical therapist. I'm still touching people. So my job, there's not much distancing. So I understand my massage therapists out there. I've been limiting some of the things that I normally do. Some people I have to actually touch. Use the proper, usually with a massage, you can't put gloves on. So me, I can put gloves on, take the gloves off, dispose of them, wash my hands, sanitize, keep my N95 on, Lysol it. Like some of these careers or positions they're opening, they can't wear gloves to do hair because they're a braider. They can't do gloves all the time. They can't dispose of different things like I feel like I can, and I'm still not totally comfortable. So I'm really concerned about my friends who are hairstylists and barbers. I've talked to several of them and voiced my concerns before I even came onto this seminar tonight, because I'm seriously concerned about them. And I gave my pointers of what I do. I think they should, you know, disinfect each time, limit no visitors. If they have multiple stylists, I would make sure that the chairs are apart enough. I would say 101. I would say nobody in the waiting room. Yep. And I would maybe stagger the shifts, to be honest with you. Luckily with me, I just work for myself and I can limit to who comes in and out. But you need to take things a little more seriously or go the extra step if you want to see your business prosper in the long run. Rather, I'm not saying death, but rather you want to sustain yourself through this, you need to take the proper steps. The number one step I would say is probably wait a little bit. But if you really, really can't, we can't force you to, please try to take more preventative steps than you did before.
Yeah. And I will say that ultimately those were really great. And beyond that, we need to realize there's no strategy, there's no plan. Right. Like this is literally a test run, so to speak, right? Like there literally is no administrative plan, nor no local plan, et cetera, to how you navigate re-entering back into community during, not after, during a pandemic.
Exactly.
Plan in place. Has the government agreed to do comprehensive universal health care that will include access to testing, to treatment, to care, et cetera, follow-up care? No, they have not. Have they implemented a long-term bailout plan for individuals? They have with large corporations, but they have not for us. Okay, so there's no other stimulus package. There's nothing. So it's almost kind of forcing us to make a decision that we know it may not be right for us or our families or our loved ones. Has your local government offered the distribution of PPE? You know, if you are a business that is at risk of going under this current economy due to COVID-19, has the government stepped in and said, okay, well, we'll give you an endless supply of anything you need in order to make sure your people are safe and well, in order to make sure you are safe and well? The answer is no. So with that information, please just make whatever decision you feel is best for you, your family, and your loved ones. As Dr. Q has said, no one can force anyone to do anything, you know? So our thoughts are, let's just get all the information, as Dr. Rose said, and it's what you do with that information that's very powerful.
Yes, there's another question. Wouldn't opening the state this early have the opposite effect if the citizens decide to remain quarantined at home?
That's exactly what it's going to do. And this is where, you know, we really have so much economic power in a Black and Brown community, more than we probably know that we have. And so while Governor Kemp believes that reopening up the state will help boost the economy just a little bit, if we all stay home and we all continue to quarantine and practice social distance, he's going to see, no, it doesn't. It's not going to boom. It's not going to increase, because people care more about their lives than getting a haircut and getting a fill-in, you know? And so I think exactly what you're saying, it's going to have the opposite effect for sure, because people are not going to go off of what this man is saying. They're going to go off of their common sense. Like Atlanta's Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms said, use your common sense in this situation. This man has made a decision, didn't consult the leaders in the state, nor did he consult the data to support his decision. And I mean, we're all data-driven decision makers. So we're not making decisions before we consult the data. And that's basically what he did. And I really feel similar to what Dr. Redmond was saying. It's like, who wants to be the first? And Georgia, Tennessee, and South Carolina are the first states to say that they're reopening. But Georgia's saying, oh, we're going to reopen on Friday. Friday is 2 days away. And we still have an increase in cases. We still have an increase in the number of deaths. So I think if everyone continues to quarantine, if everyone continues to practice social distancing, then Kemp is not going to get what he thinks is going to be the outcome of reopening the economy, because no one's going to go outside and no one's going to purchase anything. And when you purchase anything, you can't go anywhere. You can't go to a sporting event. You can't go to a concert. So what's the point of buying that outfit if you can't go out, go out and wear it?
Right. Most definitely. And not on top of that, what do y'all feel about the businesses that's opening Mondays, like the dining restaurants starting on Monday?
And the movie theater.
And the movie theaters. No, I still think that a lot of people are using their common sense. I'm just going on the senses that I've seen around social media, texting different people, talking over the phone. A lot of people say they're still staying at home. So I still don't see these businesses flourishing. Even with the openings, I still don't think they're making the revenue that they need to make to go day to day. So I'm just very curious to see who is going to be sitting in somebody's theater watching what is out right now. I don't even know what.
Exactly. No one.
Everybody's watching Netflix. Like, I don't know. I don't watch a lot of movies, but I'm just
going to a movie theater. I mean, I think what we all need to realize is that our new normal is just that. This is the new norm. And we will be in masks for quite some time until this has passed. But the CDC director yesterday said that when COVID returns in the winter, it's going to be worse than it was this time around. So this is something that we as a community, we really need to be prepared for now. If the CDC director is saying that when this returns, it's going to be worse, we don't need to lose the number of African Americans that we lost this time around. We need to make sure that we are putting precautions in place for ourselves, for our communities, and for the most vulnerable populations. I mean, we have so many nursing homes where 15 and 20 elderly individuals have died. Like, that's not okay. You know, families send their loved ones to these facilities so that they can have, you know, some quality of life at the end of their lives. And here comes COVID-19 and takes these individuals' lives. That is not okay. And since the last recording, since last Thursday, I know 2 people that have passed away from COVID-19. So deaths are still happening. This is not something that is on the decline. It's still increasing. And again, I have to say it, Kemp was politically negligent to make this decision for the state of Georgia.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, even in the introduction, I stated around 18,000 cases. This is from information, public health information I received last night. Literally 24 hours later, at 7 o'clock tonight, Dr. Rose, you received 20,000 cases. So we are constantly increasing on, did I say decreasing? Oh goodness, increasing on our trend here. And there is no visible data that supports what the governor is doing to this state. And I want to read something that I believe I retrieved from the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, in Texas. So okay. I know Texas, very similar to, even though it's the Midwest, is very similar to their politics in the South. And what he said was, Texas says there are more, he says that there are more important things than living. Okay, there are more important things than living. We have to take risks and get back in the game and get up and running. The markets are crashing. I'm truly at a loss for words, you know, and this is not an isolated opinion. This is the theme, the constant opinion that we are seeing throughout all administrations in the South, predominantly in the South, but we are seeing with our neighboring states here in Georgia, this idea of, well, our economy is crashing. And as all of us have said tonight, well, if we are not here, you know, if we are not here and can live another day to contribute to the economy, then what? Because we know that Black and brown people make up this economy. We are the right in this economy. We are the spinners in this economy. We hold down the economy. And as both of you have elevated in this conversation, if we were to stay home, we're actually showing our power. And of course, understanding your individual situation, and if you are able to. So the first line of defense is staying home. So if you are able to stay home, you are actually flexing that power. And if you are not, as as all of us uplifted on this video chat today, is thinking about some of the ways and the guidelines we can implement within our own practices that keeps us and our surrounding people safe.
Absolutely. You want me to read another question?
Sure.
How can we manage the anxiety of feeling like we need to work, but are still scared of working? What mental steps can we take to make sure our mind is at ease much as possible? Well, I feel like I'm an essential worker right now in some cases. So to be honest with you, what I do to ease my mind is I think of why I really came into the career, and it's really to help people. And so I feel better when I'm helping people, but I'm also have to think about the people I can't help at this time. So it took me about 2 whole weeks to go down my senses and say who I wasn't going to treat, call family members, and tell people who I was going to treat, and talk to certain doctors. Ways that I help myself is I continue to walk. I have some self-care things that I do at home. I walk away from the kids. I do my daily stretching. I watch some TV. I call people. There's different ways that you could cope with things, but you have to find your new normal. As Dr. Crystal and Dr. India said, this is totally new to everyone. So do not have guilt because you have to leave the house. Everyone can't stay inside. Like I said, I can't technically stay inside, but I can say what I can and won't do. It's very hard at this time, and I don't want to give the wrong advice, but I only can say is you have to take it day by day and use whatever support system that you do have. And if you don't have that support system, please, we'll give you our contact. Please contact us because we can lead you to the right support system. So that's how I mentally get through what I've been through these last 5 weeks, because it's been, I'm not gonna lie, it's been a roller coaster these last 5 weeks. So I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off what you said, the second part, but scared of working, I think that speaks to the situations that we're being placed in when we are essential and we have to go to work.
Right.
It's really irresponsible on a lot of employers when they don't provide their staff with the proper mask to protect themselves, with the proper spacing in these warehouses and these different facilities. And so I feel like if you are essential, we should not be scared to go out and do the job that we've been doing. It's really the responsibility of these different establishments to make sure that you're able to do your job in an environment that is safe and in an environment that's not going to jeopardize your health, because you are making a living for yourself and for your family. You are, the provider for your family. And so I think it's really, really important for us to challenge these employers, say, hey, we 2 feet apart. This ain't 6 feet. I think we have to be really bold and just have those conversations, because our health is at risk and our lives are at jeopardy if we don't.
Speak up. That's what safety. That's Dr. India keeps talking about that. Safety. Even if you're essential, safety.
Then I see someone has, do you believe we are reopening the state due to such a high unemployment rate?
Economy.
I say in the back.
I think that's one of the reasons. I mean, I really do. When we think about the number of individuals, not just in Georgia, but in the United States, that have been laid off or furloughed as a result of COVID-19, when you have unemployment benefits, that means that your employer actually set something in motion to make that happen. Mm-hmm. And so, you working means that the state is not having to provide these benefits to you. And so, providing unemployment, it does tap into the state's economy, but it's a program that's in place to help in our time of crisis. So again, I don't think that we should rush to reopen just because a lot of people have been laid off due to the circumstances. I think that we need to reopen when the time is right, regardless of the hardship. I know people personally that have been laid off because of the circumstances, and we just have to do what we need to do as a community. We need to rally together. If you see your neighbor struggling in any way, help that neighbor out, make that neighbor a meal. I know we can't pay each other's bills, but if you have a little extra, if someone needs gas money, this is where kindness goes a long way. This is, we are brothers and sisters. This is where that really shows. And so treat people how you want to be treated. And I feel like in a crisis, that's where we really get to shine and show that kindness.
Yes. And we have another question. How are we ready to reopen the state when they just opened GWCC as a hospital? Is it for the new patients that we will have after the test run?
Yeah,
and that's the World Congress Center, right?
It is, yeah. They spent millions of dollars to convert the Georgia World Congress Center into a makeshift hospital. And I think that they know what's coming. I think that they know that communities are going to run out and get their nails, their hair. Guys want to get lined up. People want to go bowling. I don't know anybody that wants to go to the movies, but I think that they do know that when this happens, and it is a test run, it's almost like we're a lab rats. And I think if you value your life at all, you won't be that lab rat, because why else would they spend so much money to create a makeshift hospital out of our World Congress Center that is usually, used for large events that we have here in the city of Atlanta? So I think that they do know that there's going to be an increase, but like Trump said, we know that there will be deaths as a result of us opening up the economy. And so I think Governor Kemp is also aware. I saw the footage of Governor Kemp walking through the Georgia World Congress Center. He was very proud of how nice it looked, but we don't want anybody in there. We don't want anybody to have the Georgia World Congress Center as the place that they'll be for 14 days. And some people won't come home from that. I think that's the part that we really just need to continue to hit home. 50% of the deaths in our country are African Americans. 50% of the COVID deaths in our country are African Americans. We don't want anybody in our communities, period, Black, white, Hispanic, Latino, no one, to take heed to this message and run out and go get your hair and nails done thinking that you're safe because Governor Kemp said that you are not. So to answer that question, it is going to be for the new patients. And in the next 2 weeks, we will see that in the media, I'm pretty sure.
And I read that they said that the GWCC is for the minor cases. So it will open the hospitals for patients that need to be on the more severe cases. So I don't even know how sterile can a World Congress Center be? I don't know. I just don't understand how they made that a hospital that quick, but we'll see.
So someone also has a comment. They said, okay, so the PPE they are going to use when they open a bowling alley, spa, etc., aren't they taking away from the medical field? And also said, well, won't they look all nice and good when they get infected? Yeah, again, we have a scarcity of supplies, and you would wonder, okay, the U.S. is supposed to be the wealthiest country, the richest country. Why can't we just make more supplies, right? Well, because we outsource. We don't make our own stuff here. We definitely outsource. We have a trade economy, et cetera. So when you shut down the economy, that means that you are prohibiting the production of other items to enter into our country too as well. So now we got to figure out what are we going to do to make sure that people have what they need. You would think it's an easy solution because the people who are able to write those checks should write those checks, but rather, as we said, we're opening up the World Congress Center and spending millions of dollars to do X, Y, and Z, rather than thinking on the front end, how can we protect people, versus thinking on the back end of how we can house people if they become infected. So I absolutely think that there will be a shift in access to resources when these other businesses open up, for sure, if people even have access to that.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of what you said, I know when COVID first hit in March, they said that in New Orleans, the hospitals had to go to the nail salons to get masks. Mm-hmm. So I think this is an issue of just not having what you need in the event of a pandemic in the first place. I think a lot of hospitals and healthcare facilities, they don't have the resources that they need for something of this magnitude. And I feel like now is the time. Like, we definitely were not well prepped. We didn't plan, and not we, our administration, the person that's in the White House, he had the information, he didn't act on it. And now we have, over 47,000 deaths in our country as a result of his lack of planning, his lack of preparation. And so when you have hospitals having to go to nail salons to get masks, that really speaks to resources. And I feel like you said, if Trump can put his name on the stimulus check, you can put your name on other checks to get the equipment that we need so that our communities will not be as impacted the next time that COVID returns, because it is going to return, as we know, later this year.
That's right.
Whoa. Very scary.
Okay, and opening it up for a few more comments. I think until we receive more comments, I think the question is, so what do people need to consider, and what is the ask here? I know we said today in our live that we want to make sure that people have the information that they need to make an informed decision as to what's best for themselves and their family and the people around them, et cetera. So that is very important. Another thing I want to uplift is radical organizing. By you being able to, or making the decision to stay at home, or making the decision to maybe not re-engage back into the economy so soon, that is power, right? So when I'm organizing, it doesn't have to be in a format of like, let's all go to the Capitol, let's make sure to have a town hall to sign a letter and a bill and and an ask for the governor of the local government. It can be just the decision that you're making and the power that you hold. So be radical with that. And radical means to shift, to do something different. So do something different. As we have all said today, I know it's not an easy decision for any of us. And all of our lived experience and situations don't exist in the vacuum. Everyone's situation is unique and different. And we are trying to navigate this together as a collective community. So I would say, as we hold that power, use it in a radical way. And it's funny because as I was going through, school and, deciding what kind of physician I want to be, et cetera, I remember thinking, oh, I'm not this political person. I'm not political. However, I very quickly found out, and not as an adult of my age, but, a little earlier in my years, that my existence, everything about my existence and my Blackness in this country is political, whether we want to believe it or not, whether we engage in the political environment, but everything that has to deal with our Blackness and our brownness and our identities that we hold is political. And it's been that way since we were taken from where we, from Africa. And when we got off that boat and we were auctioned off, okay, we became political at that moment. So it has not ended now. Okay. So regardless if you are comfortable with getting involved in the political environment, we need to send a message that, one, we see you. Okay. Hey, governor, local government, federal administration, we see you, and we will continue to see you when it's time to go out and vote. We will continue to see you when it's time to use and shift our power. And I think that's one of the things we need to be able to walk away with today in this conversation.
Absolutely. And it looks like we have another question. It's really a comment about the stimulus check, and that the government knew that it wasn't going to work. It's not for us. It's going to go back to mortgage companies. It's going to go back to, you got to pay your car note, rent, et cetera. And so it says they should stop people from having to pay essentials. And I totally agree. If you want to help your community, your constituents, if Trump wants to help his constituents, he has the power to press pause on your mortgage, on your rent, on your car note. Everything right now, you need to press pause. We need a true pause, because families are suffering, and $1,200 is not enough, especially when you're getting it 5 weeks into a pandemic. If you've been laid off for 5 weeks, that means your car note has come around, your mortgage has come around, and it is really difficult. I mean, $1,200 is not enough. I hope that they decide to give more. I know that they have increased the unemployment to try to offset some of those costs, but I mean, it's hard out here. You got to pay your bills. And I just don't think that it's fair for us as Americans, not even Georgians, for us as Americans to have to worry about losing our homes, losing our cars, because we're in a pandemic that our president didn't prepare for. That is not our fault. And so, I truly empathize with everyone. We are in this together. We will get through this together. We just have to continue to stay strong. And like Dr. Redmond said, I mean, November, it's election season, y'all. So go to the polls. If Stacey Abrams won, I don't think that our economy would be opening here in Georgia on Friday. So we have a lot of political power, more than we know that we have. And we have to make sure that in November that we go to the polls and do what's necessary. And this is an example of why we need to go to the polls.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree, especially with not just the stimulus check. They need to think of ways to, like this comment say, to maybe do other essentials, like you said, because a lot of people, if they could get over these big payments, maybe the stimulus check could help just with the necessities right now. But now people are juggling what to pay. And I know someone personally last week whose car was repossessed personally. And I don't know if anything was covering. I know they were halting certain things getting cut off, but her car has been taken away. And I witnessed that personally, and I was at awe that they would do that during this time.
That's unfortunate. I mean, it makes me really sad that we have to worry about our homes and our cars. And our car gets us to our place of employment, if we're essential or not. When we are able to go back to work, a car is so essential. And I always say this, I said, you can sleep in a car, you can't drive a house. So that car is important. And so, people to be so insensitive in the midst of a pandemic, it really just speaks to the types of people that we have in this world. Some people care about the economy. Other people care about the people behind the economy. And, I just think it's really unfortunate that happened to someone that I see this comment about Trump is now urging Kemp to reverse.
Really?
That's just Trump for you. You know, he planted the seed. It grew. And now Georgia's opening on Friday. But I think, you know, I know we're coming to a close. I think what's really important for everyone to know is that you have to do what's best for you and your family. And, you know, if I had to give you any guidance from a public health perspective, continue to practice social distancing. If you have N95 masks, there we go. If you have, wear them. If you have, you know, a fabric mask, wear that. Protect your family from the oldest to the youngest. And if you are able to stay home, please just stay home for the next 2 weeks to see how this all pans out, because I don't want you to be occupying one of those beds in the Georgia World Congress Center.
That's right. That's right. And also knowing that the U.S. has failed us, right? It is very clear. And historically, the U.S. has always failed us. And when I say us, Black and brown people, right? And all the identities we hold within that Blackness and that brownness. So it's not a surprise that all of a sudden, you know, this $1,200 check or whatnot, as if it was going to be like our golden ticket to recover. Like they were not going to come in and just not fail us. You know, as soon as we got that $1,200, it was like, now go spend it. We're going to open up everything. So go ahead and spend it and re-engage back in society. And that's the only check you're going to get. So I don't think it is surprising the ways that the U.S. will continue to fail us. And as we said here in this discussion, this is an opportunity for us to collectively build power, to mobilize and hold our power in making the decision that is right for us, our lives, and our survival. And I think Dr. Q froze. Oh no. Dr. Q, are you frozen?
Yep, she moved.
Dr. Q, I don't know if you have any closing thoughts.
Yes. Oh my God, guys.
I think you may be frozen, but before you,
my computer and my internet is like, I don't know what's going on. So I don't know. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
A bit of a
but
delay.
You froze.
Yeah.
Oh, now you're froze with a crazy face.
I'm gonna let you guys close out. Huh?
Yes, we'll close out. And actually, we have one more comment.
Okay, I'm gonna log off.
Okay.
But this is our last comment of the evening. We have some people aren't even getting their stimulus check because they have overdrawn at the bank. Oh goodness, at the bank, and the bank is keeping the money. And then there's a few more, so I'll just read them. I think we as a people need to do better. You're right. It is on us if we are not prepared for emergencies. And then finally, we have, what do you, and these are comments, I think this is a question that will end with, what do you all think about the rumors going around about Bill Gates' involvement in a potential vaccination. Sorry, it's like far away. Having a chip attached to it.
Yeah, that's a big one. He has donated $250 million to companies that are making the vaccine. And, you know, why would you invest in something that may or may not work? And I know some people earlier this week saw the situation in the White House briefing room with the hot mic, where two reporters said, oh, it's okay because we're already vaccinated, implying that there's already a vaccine out there, but it just wasn't enough to, you know, give to everyone. I don't know how I feel about the rumors. I've always admired the work that Bill Gates does, Melinda, the different organizations and foundations that they donate their money to. This was a little bit uncomfortable for me because it made me feel like maybe he does have some, you know, knowledge that we're not aware of. And I think, you know, just with Tuskegee, this is the 2020 Tuskegee. That's basically what we're going through. I mean, everyone knows the Tuskegee, you know, experiment. They had the penicillin, could have gave it to the men, chose not to so that they could study the progression of syphilis. Some of those men died as a result, but they were doing research, and that's how now we have to do human subjects protection. I think right now we are in the 2020 version of the Tuskegee experiment. And, you know, I hope that Bill Gates will be on the right side of history, but when all this is said and done, we'll be able to make that determination.
Absolutely. And I won't speak to large foundations. I think, we are able to see whatever they want us to see as to what philanthropy work they do.
Right.
I will say this. The revolution will never be funded. Okay. So the survival, the liberation, the freedom, the justice of all of us is not going to be funded. So when you think about large foundations that have hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, those funds, if they were to go to our survival, our life, this vaccination or this vaccine, as well as any other type of resource we need in order to thrive and survive, we would have seen it already, right? If those resources we know already exist and they would have been poured into our survival. We've seen on many different occasions, especially during election cycles and et cetera, that funds will go towards one effort and then go towards the opposite opposing effort, right? Especially around, political healthcare issues such as like reproductive health and et cetera, right? So we see that large foundations, people with a lot of economic power, put money here and a little bit of money here, just so there can continue to be some type of tugging of a rope here, right? Versus pouring into your resources in the direction that will create life and create our ability to be liberated and free and healthy and et cetera. So as far as like this specific foundation, I think that many foundations pour money into many different, things that can help our communities. But if they truly pour money into these things, then we probably wouldn't be having this conversation today.
Exactly. I think that's all our questions for tonight.
Yes. Wonderful. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. It was a really rich conversation. We will continue to hold down this spot so we can have collective community conversations. We are here. Thank you, Dr. Rose and Dr. Q. Dr. Q. For being in this panel with us and giving us so much of your wisdom and guidance. So thank you, everyone, and please have a safe night.
Have a great night, everyone. Bye.
Bye.